Hey, welcome back. Vaults Remastered. I'm going to be talking about Clerics of Kvarca a second time today. So, in my previous video, where I was regaling you with a option for a cloistered cleric, a variant that was based upon Kvarca, who is a primordial entity, a god within my second edition Pathfinder homebrewed world known as the Vaults, a remastered version from the 5e D&D game I was playing not too long ago. I've got these primordials. I got these entities, and Kavarka is one of them. These are the things that people like clerics and champions are going to pray to for their powers. And Kavarka is this gleaming gem-like titanic entity of crystal and radiant energy. He's beautiful. He's gorgeous. He is perfect, unblemished, flawless, and he has people worshiping him who are attempting to emulate this. And the first version was the cloistered cleric, and the second video, what we're going to talk about is the warpriest. We're going to get into the beacon of battle. So go ahead and grab your cup of GM juice and follow along because I'm gonna go through my process. How am I going to create a variant, a optional version of a warpriest? Now, from my previous video, if you watched that one about the cloistered cleric, the seeker of perfection, you'll know that my initial concept was to come up with alternative replacement doctrines that you would feed into your cleric as a choice. However, during my work with ChatGPT, who I affectionately refer to as my AI muse, Kathy, Chatty Kathy, we opted for, instead of replacement, supplemental. So the doctrine options are the ones you would find in the stock rules. Rules is written from the remastered version of the game, the player core. And they've added in just a little bit of extra flavor that brings out this gleaming, shiny, perfect, flawless version of Kavarka. This entity who is domains of wealth and radiance and the earth and perfection. And we're going to be looking at the Warpriest this time around. What I am calling the beacon of battle. I presented the beacon of battle concept during my original video about Kavarka's divine gifts that he would bestow upon his worshippers. And so this is going to be a deep dive into the Warpriest. So let's take a look at what Warpriest normally would get. This is hot off the presses, second edition Pathfinder Remastered Player Core, thanks to Ronnie. He was doing some rules lawyering earlier today, and I happened to have paused the video and did a screening of the updated version of the Warpriest doctrines. He actually shot his video a few days ago. But anyway, thanks, Ronnie. So here's what's going on. I went ahead and screenshot this. These are the doctrines that you get. So if you choose a cleric, at first level, you also choose your doctrine. You either go cloistered, like the bookworm type, or you're going to go warpriest, the frontline, heavily armored type of battle priest. And as part of that choice, you get doctrines. And you get one at first level, and then at third, seventh, etc., every 4 levels until 19. And each doctrine boosts you up a little bit, making you better able to handle your role as you increase level and the challenges get greater. So for Warpriest, there was a lot more remastering done with this. I'm not super familiar with the original version of second edition, so I'm not going to sit here and go the back and forth of what's better, what's worse. I'm just presenting you what is going to be in the player core book, which is being released in about 2 days. So here it is, the first doctrine. You are trained in light and medium armor. You have expert proficiency in fortitude saves. You get the shield block general feat, which allows you to put your shield up and absorb some damage. And if your deity's favored weapon is a simple weapon or an unarmed attack, for Kavarka it is the spear. You gain the deadly simplicity cleric feat. I don't think a spear is a simple weapon, but maybe it is. Maybe it is. I'll have to give you a real quick second. Let me go see if if a spear qualifies as simple or if that's a martial weapon. Let me be right back. All right, I've pulled up the core rulebook. Now, this is not the remastered version. This is the current version that I have. And the spear, if I move my noggin, it's right there. It is under the simple weapon category. So therefore, this is going to count as a simple weapon. So if we go back to our Warpriest first doctrine here, the way it reads, so if your deity's favorite weapon is simple, spear counts, you get the deadly simplicity cleric feat. So the Kvarca priests, the war priests, would get shield block and they would get deadly simplicity. And then at 13th level, if you gain the divine defense class feature, you also gain expert proficiency in light and medium armor. That I don't know. That could be something else from clerics in Warpriest. Let me take a quick peek if I can find that real quick in the current version of the game. All right, so looking in the cleric section, sure enough, at 13th level, clerics gain the divine defense. So I'm going to check that off as a yes to that question as well. So if this is true, at 13th level, if you gain the divine defense class feature, you also gain expert proficiency. I'm not sure what type of cleric would not get that. This seems to be specific to any cleric, so I'm not sure how you would not get that. So I'm not sure if there's a way to not get this feat, or this ability. So maybe you're I don't say multi-classing because you can't really do that. So I'm not really sure. Not really sure how that works. Perhaps if you did some sort of archetype, way to do it, that might be the reason you wouldn't have it. But anyway, so I'm not going to probably change anything here. But this is the big stuff, the first doctrine that you get as a war priest for any cleric, any deity, any primordial in my game. Everybody's getting this one. And as I mentioned in my previous video about the cloister cleric, this is where I would like for Pathfinder to have more options, right? Because every cleric, every war priest is going to get the same thing. And this is one of the reasons why I am given the flavor that you see with my bullet points over here, and why I'm actually engaging in this exercise, which is to take these bullet pointed thematic role play based flavors for my Warpriest of Kvarca, and I want to turn them into mechanical, rules based add-ons to these doctrines that you see over here on the actual, or on the left. These are the actual ones in game. So first doctrine, I don't plan on changing that. But second, third, fourth, fifth, and final doctrine, I want to be able to flavor these using my bulleted list of attributes that a war priest, one of these beacons of battle, would have in my game world if you are a Kvarca worshiper. All right, the second doctrine, you're trained in martial weapons. Great. Third doctrine, you gain expert proficiency with your deity's favored weapon, martial weapons, simple weapons, and unarmed attacks. When you critically succeed at an attack roll using the favored weapon, again for my guy, for Kvarca, it's a spear, you apply the weapon's critical specialization effect. You can use your spell DC in place of the class DC, so that should make it hypothetically easier for you to hit if you don't go full like strength with your war priest. You stick with your main attribute of wisdom. Fourth doctrine, your proficiency ranks for the spell attack modifier and spell DC stats increase to expert. Fifth doctrine, your proficiency rank for fortitude saves increases to master. When you roll a success at a fort save, you get a critical instead. And the last doctrine, at 19th level, you gain mastery with your deity's favored weapon, spell attack modifier, and spell DC. So all these are fairly generic, fairly bland. They're necessary, they're important, they're critical, because as you're gaining level, so are the creatures you're fighting, so are the challenges you're attempting to overcome. And so you need your levels of proficiency to increase, because that's going to boost you another, +2, +4, whatever, to hit. or spell saves, that kind of stuff. So you can't stay just at the basic training level. That's only going to give you +2 in your level. You need to get up to mastery, expert, legendary, whatever. And this is what these doctrines are targeting. So what I'm going to do, and what I started to do with Kathy's suggestion during the last video, was take my flavor, and rather than replacing these in-game doctrines with new ones that are based on my flavors, instead I want to add supplement. I want to beef up or put a variant spin on each of these doctrines using some of the themes, some of the flavor here. So what is a beacon of battle in my game? This Warpriests of Kvarca. Well, they're going to be radiant warriors, so they reflect Kvarca's dazzling brilliance and strength. Their combat style is elegant and precise, often using weapons and armor that are functional and artistically exquisite. So these guys are like a beauty to behold on a battlefield. Harmonious combat. They believe in the perfection of form and function, and their martial prowess is as much about artistic expression as it is about effectiveness. So they are going to be painting the battlefield with the blood of their enemies, the way I'm starting to think about this. They might employ graceful dance-like maneuvers, emphasizing finesse over brutal force. So I could see maybe them having, like, I don't know, ribbons or something attached to some of their weapons. So as they're spinning around, it's like a dance. Maybe they got gems and jewels that are gleaming and glistening as they spin around, and you get these little sparkling reflective things. I don't know, maybe they've got some sort of crystal humming vibrations as they're wielding their weapons around. That could be something interesting. Then the mineral mites, warpriests of Kvarca, also gain unique abilities to manipulate gemstones and dazzling crystals in battle, using them for both offense and defense. I can't wait to see what Kathy comes up with as an idea of how to use that. I'm picturing blasts of like radiant energy or something like that, or just blinding flashes. And then there's the aura of awe. Their presence on the battlefield is not just fearsome, but awe-inspiring. Radiate an aura that reflects their commitment to beauty and perfection. So you'd be like, damn, you look good out there. And meanwhile, they're like skewering you with their spear if you're the enemy, which would demoralize you. Wow, you're so pretty. How did you kill me? All right, so inspiration to allies, terror to their enemies. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause the vid real quick. I'm going to take this information and I'm going to feed it into Chatty Cathy, my muse there, ChatGPT, and see what she comes up with. So give me a second. Let me pause the vid, and then we'll bring you guys back in as I start to get some responses from her. Be right back. All right, I'm back. Here we go. So this is what I did. I said, hey, let's continue our conversation and looking at the Warpriest variant. It's called the Beacon of Battle. We have the 4 role-play-based attributes of this cleric, and I'd like to develop these into rules-based mechanics a player can use instead of just the generic doctrines, which we just talked about. I then tell her what the doctrines of the remastered Warpriest are. So the first doctrine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the way down to the final doctrine that we just went over. And then I'm giving her a reminder of what the flavors were of the Beacon of Battle that we came up with in the previous video. So Radiant Warriors, Harmonious Combat, Mineral Might, and Aura of Awe. So I feed that into her. Then I say, as with the Cloistered Cleric variant that we had just done in the previous conversation you see above here, I don't want an option for the first level doctrine, so I'm just going to leave that stock. But I want options for the remaining doctrines that use the initial ability, so whatever the stock ability is, that use the stock ability, but add a supplementary ability that is thematic of Kvarca and his religion, using the flavor roleplay bullets. There we go. Can you help me again? Pow! All right, I'm going to fire those in there and see what she comes up with. And then what I'm going to do is take that information and look at it one at a time with whatever she comes up with. And we'll kind of analyze them for appropriateness and, balance, that kind of stuff. So let's give her a minute or two to figure this out, and then I'll be right back with the results of her thoughts. Okay, she's done. here's what she had to say for her results, that the supplementary features she just is proposing, designed to be thematic and in line with the deity's domain, Kvarca, providing unique flavor without overshadowing the core features of the Warpriest doctrine. That is important, I think. I didn't tell her to do that. That's her own philosophy. So I agree, though. They offer additional versatility and options for a cleric of Kvarca, enhancing the role of a warpriest who serves as both a formidable combatant and a beacon of Kvarka's radiant glory on the battlefield. All right, very good. So let's take a look then. I've taken her ideas and put them into the doctrines. So here's the original doctrines, right? These are the ones that are in the remaster on the left. This was the original just flavor text for my role play, concept for this Warpriest, these beacons of battle. And so then what we've got here are the options that she's now proposing. So the first one, which would be the second doctrine you get at third level, she's calling it harmonious agility. Let's see what she thinks. So you're trained in martial weapons. That doesn't change. And then you've learned to incorporate the flowing movements of Kvarca's artistry into combat. Whenever you make an attack with a martial weapon, you can use your reaction to gain a +1 circumstance bonus to your armor class until the start of your next turn. Okay. I don't necessarily think that's crazy, but you've got shield block as a reaction already, which doesn't it kind of do the same thing? So shield block, if you have your shield equipped and you take the raised shield action, you get the I think it's the armor bonus of the shield, and then you can then use your shield block reaction to, deflect and get some damage reduction. What this sounds like, if I'm interpreting this right, is you don't need to take the raise shield action. And you could use harmonious agility to use your reaction just to essentially quick raise your shield and get a +1 AC. It doesn't sound like you actually get the shield block, though. Okay, I mean, it doesn't necessarily, also, it doesn't mean that you even have a shield, right? You don't need a shield for this one. So let's say you're just shieldless. You're using just sword or a spear and or club, maybe like a scepter, kind of looking like Kvarka's symbol, his scepter Christrum, maybe. So you could be dual weaponing or something, right? And whenever you make an attack with a martial weapon, as long as one of them's a martial weapon, so the spear wouldn't count, you'd need to have a martial weapon. Now that you are trained in martial weapons, you could use this. Let me do a quick look at what martial weapons are available, and then we'll see if this makes sense or not. So you become trained in martial weapons, so that means you can beef up your arsenal. Let's see if this will be useful or not. All right, here is the weapon list from the core rulebook. So you'd be able to arm yourself with weapons like bastard swords, battle axes, etc. Now, the types of weapons you definitely would not use would be bludgeoning, type of weapons. So stuff that has a B after it would be a sin, because Kvarca does not allow blunt objects within his realm. So anything that's with a B wouldn't be useful. So like hammers, great clubs, etc. So it'd have to be something pointed. So that might even eliminate the idea of the scepter as a weapon, because that would be essentially a club of some sort. So it'd have to be, I don't know, maybe like a pick, a sword of some sort. So you could maybe see how this could be useful. Okay. So hypothetically, you would get access to better weapons, these martial weapons, and then be able to use your reaction to get a +1 bonus to your AC. I'm just trying to think how practical that would be, because you're probably wielding a shield anyway. So is that going to make a difference? So unless one of these martial weapons, let's say, is two-handed, or something you would dual wield, that might make a little bit more sense. So let's kind of look and see if any. So for instance, the bastard sword is two-hand. That could be useful. And these other ones two-handed. Doesn't seem like I'm seeing anything here. So yeah, I don't know how useful this is. Maybe one of these reach weapons would be good. Doesn't a halberd need two hands? Does a reach weapon need two hands? I don't know. Maybe? It would seem like they would. Let me check that real quick if reach by definition is two-handed or not. All right, that's how dumb I am. It's right here. It's its own column. Hands. Duh. All right, so you can see the ones that would be... So what that means is the bastard sword is normally a one-hand weapon, but you could hold it with two hands and get the bonus d12 damage there. So anything with two hands. So yeah, a lot of these things with reach or pole arms would be two-handed weapons. But again, you wouldn't use stuff with bludgeoning. So you wouldn't use a bow staff. You might use a falchion, glaive, great axe. Wouldn't use a club. Pick, great sword. The Gizarm, I believe that's how you say it. The halberd. So some of these weapons could be. So if you wanted to go with a big old polearm wielding badass warpriest of Kvarca, this could be useful for you at that third level. So yeah, I mean it could be of benefit. So I mean, okay, I can see that it's not super useful, and none of these are gonna be super useful. They're usable. They're options. The main thing, of course, you're getting your trained in martial weaponry. That's the big thing with the second doctrine at third level. This just allows you to not necessarily need to have a shield to get a little bit of AC boost, or maybe you don't have your shield equipped, or you still have your shield, but you know you've done something else, and who knows? And you can use your reaction this way anyway. So I don't know if you ever had your shield equipped and had taken that action. I guess the big thing would be like, I don't want to use my action to raise a shield. I want to use my third action to do something else. And I still have a little bit of defense ability with harmonious agility. So I can see that being an option, right? I don't think it's going to make or break your game. All right, let's stick with it. All right, next, the third doctrine she's proposing is called Crystal Edge. You gain expert proficiency with your deity's favored weapon, martial weapons, simple weapons, and unarmed attacks. That is the standard, what you get with the third doctrine. She didn't mention the critical success stuff, so that's going to need to be popped in here to make sure that that doesn't get left out. But here's what she's adding. She's saying your weapon attacks reflect Kvarca's affinity for gemstones. Once per day is a free action. Okay, this could get scary. You can imbue your deity's favored weapon, so spear, with a crystalline edge, causing it to deal an additional d6 piercing damage on a hit for 1 minute. Free action. That would be the only thing that I would question is it's only once a day, so it's not going to make or break. It's only for a minute, so essentially one combat you're going to be able to do this. So it's a free action. So let's say a fight starts, you're like, Crystal's Edge or Crystal Edge. Boom, free action. You didn't have to spend anything. You're going to do extra d6 piercing if you hit for 1 minute, which essentially is going to be a single encounter, a single combat. You can only do this once a day. You know, I don't see it being, again, overwhelmingly game breaking. Maybe in the early game it's a little bit OP because you don't have to spend an action and you get the extra d6. It's going to be useful even in a higher level game. I mean, the d6 damage isn't anything great, like if you're going against some level 15 monster, but it's a free action, you know, and you're probably going to hit, so you're probably going to do an extra d6 just for, you know, just remembering to do that. So I don't know. It could be OP just because you should spend an action, maybe. But it's only once a day, so maybe not. I don't know. Again, I wouldn't say, oh my god, this is terrible, or wow, this is too OP. It's just a little extra damage. Probably better use in low level game. All right, let's continue. Fourth doctrine. Normally you get the proficiency rank for spell attack and spell DC increases to expert. So your proficiency ranks for spell attack modifier and spell DC statistics increases to expert, so that's what you needed at this level. And then the extra thing you get is you gain the ability to cast the Stone Skin spells, an innate spell once a day, reflecting your connection to Kvarca's dominion over minerals. Now that could be a little bit interesting, shall we say. Let me go look up Stone Skin to see if it matches. So the fourth doctrine you get at 11th level. So by then you should have access to what, 7th level spells, 8th level spells. I don't think that's going to be the problem. Let's just look up Stone Skin and get the stats on it so we can tell if this is crazy or not, because it's only a once a day thing. So let me go pull that up and put it on here. Be right back. Okay, here it is. So here's Stone Skin. It's a 4th level spell, so that's not the problem there. Range of touch, one creature, 20-minute duration. So you gain the ability to cast Stone Skin. So I assume you're going to put it on yourself. Doesn't restrict it to yourself. But assuming you're going to do that, it's going to give you a 20-minute duration. So you don't need to use one of your spell slots or whatever they're calling them in the remaster. Innate spell. The target skin hardens. Resistance 5 to physical damage, except adamantine. Each time the target is hit by bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, Stone Skin's duration decreases by a minute. Okay. And then it's heightened. I don't know that the heightened would affect, though, right? Because it doesn't say that you can heighten it, because, and again, it does, so do you allow it to heighten or not? Because what does it heighten to? The Warpriest maximum? I would assume that would be the case. So at this level, I think you're able to cast, what, 7th, 8th level spells? Something like that. So you would be heightening 15, 8th level, right? Which, I mean, that would kind of make sense that it heightens, because otherwise, it needs some details here, right? Otherwise, why would you use this if it's only going to give you 5? I don't think it's really going to help you battling against, 11th level and higher type of monsters. I mean, you're going to get hit repeatedly. And yeah, sure, it's shaving off 5 damage, but it's only against physical attacks. So anything elemental or magical is not going to do dink. So I think heightened is going to be a thing. So I was going to put that note heightened. So I have to go back and check and see if, I have to revise this stuff, right? So heightening is definitely a question of whether or not it does. The other thing that I want to know is, I'm guessing it uses all the same stats. So it has a cast time of 2 actions. So it's going to be, during a combat, you use this ability, spend 2 your actions to do the Stone Skin. The only advantage is it's not taking from the spells that you've, studied that day or prayed for that day. Everything else, I believe, is the same. So I think the only question is going to be the heightened yay or nay. And my instinct is yes, to make it relevant at higher levels. Otherwise, what's the point? Heightened to Warpriest's current level. And there may be already rules in Pathfinder that, determine this anyway, and I might just sound like an idiot for even asking that question. I don't know. I'm no pro at the game. I'm just kind of getting started like a lot of you are. So that's my question right now. Does this auto heighten or not? So if you happen to know the answer to that question, throw that one down in the comments. I'd appreciate your insights for those of you who are more knowledgeable of Pathfinder 2nd Edition than I am. Okay, so that is the 4th doctrine. I don't necessarily see any problem there. It kind of fits, right? I mean, you're going to be fighting, you're going to be battling, so, a little bit more defensive stuff seems logical to me. All right, then the next one, the 5th doctrine is Luminous Protection. And this one is your proficiency rank for the fort saves increases to master, so that matches what you get normally. When you roll the success, you get a critical instead, okay. And then it adds this. In addition to the core feature, once per day when you successfully use shield block, you can emit a burst of radiant light. What does it mean to successfully use shield? I mean, if you take the action to raise shield, then you could use shield block as a reaction. Is that success, or is it you reduce an attack to 0? What exactly is a successful use of shield block? What is successful use of shield block? Just means you do it, or you reduce damage to 0. Because I would say if it's going to be the former, well, that's when, there's no success. It just happens. I would say if you use your raised shield and reduce damage to 0, that would be a successful use. That would then trigger your ability to emit this burst of radiant light. The attacker becomes dazzled. They should probably get a saving throw, right? Or because the restriction is already reducing to 0. Does target get save? I guess it depends on which way you... Probably a fort save, right? So if successful use is simply taking that reaction and blocking, regardless of whether you reduce the damage to 0 or not, then I think for sure the guy should get a saving throw, because then that would be sort of the downside. If you need to successfully use, meaning you reduce it to 0, then I think maybe they don't get the fort save, and they just become dazzled. And dazzled what? Dazzled 1? I think don't they go in numbers? Dazzling? Dazzle 1, Dazzle 2? I think they do. I think they have a value to them. Let me look that up real quick, because I had this question earlier in my video, the initial video about the gifts that Kvarca gives. So hold on a second. Let me pull this up on Archives of Nethys and see. Okay, so here is Archives of Nethys. Here is the dazzled condition. It says your eyes are overstimulated. If vision's your only precise sense, all other creatures and objects are concealed. So if they're using visual senses, they become dazzled, and creatures and objects are concealed. Now, what does concealed mean, of course, is your next question. While you're concealed from a creature such as a thick fog, you're difficult for that creature to see. You can still be observed, but you're tougher to spot. A creature that you're concealed from must succeed on a DC 5 flat check when targeting you with an attack, spell, or other effect. Area effects aren't subject. So I guess if they're dazzled, you're concealed to them. And if you're concealed to them, they have to make a DC 5 flat check to target you, if I'm interpreting that all correctly. And if they don't do the DC 5 flat check, then they can't target you, and they can't attack then. If the check fails, the attack, spell, or effect doesn't affect you. Okay, so there you go. I believe that's the effect. So you have a 5 in 20 chance of them not being able to hit you. So what's that, 25%? Okay, interesting. All right, so that is what this is doing. So let's see. Is that like too powerful? Not powerful enough? So you use your shield block, burst of radiant light. The attacker either auto becomes dazzled, which then they have a 25% chance to not be able to see you until the end of its next turn. So that's effectively, its next attack, whatever the heck that is. But if it does get a save, then nothing would happen, which would kind of suck. So I'm kind of thinking that the dazzling should be, there is no number apparently associated with it. So I think we can cross that part off. So the question is, what's success? What's not success? Is it an auto succeed or not? I'm thinking this: if successful use of shield block is you simply raising your shield as a reaction, then they should get a save, right? That's fair, because you're going to be like, raise shield is my action, reaction, shield block, flash, blinded, or not blinded, but dazzled. So there should be a save for that. However, if the success is you need to reduce damage to 0 of an attack, then I think they shouldn't get a save, because that's a harder hurdle to clear. So I think it depends on what that means. I don't know if there's any other reactions out there that are worded like this. Successful use of a shield block. What is a successful shield block? If anybody knows, let me know, please, because otherwise my instinct is to say Um, I kind of hate the auto just, dazzling thing because it seems so, easy. But I just had to reduce all your damage to zero, so I think there's a nice trade-off there. But I guess where this becomes a thing is if you're fighting some big monster, you're probably never going to shield block all their attacks down to nothing, right? I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know Pathfinder well enough to say how often that occurs. That seems to me that that would not be a thing that's very frequent, like completely reducing an attack to zero when you're at what 15th level. How many monsters are only doing 10 or 15 damage, or whatever? I don't know what your damage resistance would be at that level, but let's say 10. I'm pretty sure big boy monsters that you're fighting at 15th level are probably doing on average more than 10. So I don't think you would very often successfully shield block to zero. Again, I might not, what the heck I'm talking about. So I think rather that the shield block action, a reaction should be the trigger, and then they get a saving throw whether or not they're able to avoid the dazzling. That's kind of my thinking on it. So I gotta research this a little bit more and maybe try to get some feedback from some of you or other people who know the game better than I do. All right, then the last one is gonna be the final doctrine. So this is your Beacon of Battle's final doctrine. The normal 19th level ability says you get mastery with your deity's favored weapon. Kvarca's is the spear. Spell attack modifier and spell DC. The Aura of Awe, you gain master proficiency with your deity's favored weapon, spell attack modifier, and spell DC. So that is the same thing. That's right. Your mastery of Kvarca's doctrines manifests as an aura extending 10 feet around you. Enemies that start their turn in the aura are struck by its beauty and must make a will save against your spell DC or become fascinated by you until the end of their turn. All right, what is the fascinated condition? Oh my gosh, that's my next question. The fascinated condition. Let me pull this up. Give me a second. Let me get it ready. All right, here we go. We've got it. So, according to the core rulebook, fascinated means you're compelled to focus your attention on something, distracting you from whatever else is going on around you. You take a -2 status penalty to perception and skill checks, and you can't use actions with the concentrate trait unless they are their intended consequences unless they or their intended consequences are related to the subject of your fascination. For instance, you might be able to seek and recall knowledge about the subject, but you likely couldn't cast a spell targeting a different creature. This condition ends if a creature uses hostile actions against you or any of your allies. Huh. Well, that kind of doesn't make that last part doesn't make sense. So you're fighting some dude, right? And and it says that so you're fighting. You're this beacon of battle. You got this aura of awe around you. Enemies that start in your aura are struck by its beauty and have to make this will save. So let's say they fail. They're now fascinated by you until the end of their turn. So they're fascinated. They're looking at you. And because of that, they have a -2 status penalty to perception and skill checks. And can't use actions with concentrate traits. So I guess that would be spells or something like that. Unless they or their intended consequences are related to you, essentially. So they can still go after you with some concentrated thing. Hmm. But then this condition ends if a creature uses hostile actions. So if you then smack the guy, they're no longer fascinated. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It seems a little bit situational. Maybe that's just the nature of this condition. I don't know. Good, bad, ugly. I don't know. What's your guys' thought on that? I could take it or leave it. But again, you don't want these to be so OP that you walk in, everybody's blinded, and you just start laying into them with your Vorpal sword cutting heads off or something. That of course wouldn't be so good. So I don't know. you know, it's okay, I guess. I mean, I like kind of the concept that you're just this awe aura as you're walking in. The one thing that she didn't include was the inspiration to your allies. I would kind of like that maybe part of this. Your allies get a little boost or something. I don't know. That could be a way to revise this. So if I don't like this debuff version of it, you can always do like a buff version where your allies within the radius are like, you know, oh my gosh, you're beautiful, you're glorious. I need to follow you into combat and help you smite enemies. Hmm, interesting. All right, so let's kind of wrap this up with the summary here. So the Beacon of Battle, this Warpriest option variant for Kvarca's clerics. If you were to become a Warpriest of Kvarca, you would take these subjective role playing based flavors, these themes here, the Radiant Warrior, Harmonious Combat, Mineral Might, the Aura of Awe, and what Kathy is suggesting is we not replace, but we supplement your doctrines second, third, fourth, fifth, and the final with some mechanical versions of these abilities. So Harmonious Agility, this gives you the reaction to boost your AC by 1 until the start of your next turn. So whether or not you're holding a shield or you've raised your shield, you can essentially dance and spin. I like that as a concept, so I think that's pretty cool. I just don't know how often that you wouldn't be using your shield, you know, block or whatever in the first place if you're equipped with a shield. But it gives you the option, so maybe that's the use of it there. Then Crystal Edge. Your weapon gets the extra D6 piercing because the point, the tip of that spear becomes even sharper, deals extra damage. You know, for on a hit per minute. So that's essentially one single combat. Let's say you're able to swing a couple times per your turn. So it could add up, you know, extra D6, 2D6 of damage per your turn. Let's say you're striking once or twice, and this is a 3-4 round combat. So you know that could add up for a few damage. I think in the early levels that's pretty significant because it's a free action. So that's, you know, free, right? But because it's a free action, that might be a little bit OP. But you can only do it once a day, and it's only lasts for a minute. So I think the trade-offs are there, and I think at higher levels, it's not going to be overpowered, but because it is a free action, you're pretty much an idiot if you don't use it. So I can't think of really any other free action you might do. Do free actions override other free actions? So I think one of the free actions is drop a weapon or whatever. So if I drop a weapon as a free action, does that prevent me from taking other free actions on my turn? Or can you take every free action there is in the game on your turn? I would imagine because it's free, you can do it whenever you want. And do you need to use a free action on your turn, or can you use it during someone else's turn? I don't know these rules. I don't know the specifics. That's another question I have. All right, so, you know, usable. I think this would need to be play tested to see how useful it is, but I think it's pretty much a free chance at an extra d6 of damage every turn. Maybe that's too OP just because of that. The fourth doctrine, this gives you the stone skin ability, which is, you know, nice, right? You're going to be able to resist some of this physical damage pretty well. And especially if you're able to heighten it, because you're not getting it until 11th level. So at that point, you're already getting, 15 resistance? So yeah, I mean, see, 8th, is that heightened to 8th? I believe that's the level of the spell, not the level of the character. So at 11th level, you have access to what, like 7th level spells, something like that, I forget. So you should be able to get that resistance 10, 15, somewhere's in there right away as soon as you take this doctrine. The duration is what? Once a day, the duration is 20 minutes. So, you know, this is maybe your most powerful ability of the bunch, I think. This is a defensive ability. But of course, if you're getting wailed on by some, you know, dragon or something like that, it's not going to last very long. You're going to get bludgeoned to death and shattered. But it gives you a chance to get in there and tank, I guess. So I don't mind it. I think it's interesting. Fifth doctrine, this is the one where Your shield block triggers a flash of light that can dazzle. Whether or not it's just raising your shield or actually reducing damage, I guess maybe that's it. As long as you reduce damage by some amount, then it's useful, because otherwise, let's say you're raising a broken shield of some kind, that shouldn't trigger this, right? So it has to be a shield that can still absorb some damage, still has some hit points left to it, hasn't hit its broken condition. So maybe that's the success. I have to look at the shield block rules for that one. And then the final one is the aura, your glowing aura that is fascinating. I mean, where this can be pretty powerful is if you, like, combat hasn't started yet and you just walk into the middle of a group of these enemies within 10 feet around you. They got to make a will save, or else they're just like staring at you how beautiful you are. I like the concept. It could be OP, right? Because I mean, you can get how many guys in a 10-foot aura as you're walking around, as you just walk to the battlefield. Children, let's not fight. Stare at me and how beautiful I am, and they're all like, "Ooh." Hmm. I don't know. I mean, they're not like mind controlled, but it's still potentially pretty good power. All right. I mean, none of these is I think game breaking, and they're all interesting flavor, which was the point. So I kind of like where they're going. All right, so let's wrap this up. What do you say? So there you go. I think that is the option that we've got for these warpriests, these beacons of battle. I think there's some good stuff in there. I think we need a couple play tests on some of the stuff, some tweaking. Any thoughts or comments you guys have? Let me know. Of course, give me your opinions on some of this stuff. If it's overpowered, underpowered, or whatever, or if I'm misinterpreting some of the rules I was talking about, would appreciate that. And then moving forward, hey, what's going on next? I want to get into the nation building. I want to take a look at the realms of Kvarca. I want to look at Pathfinder's rules on building nations and creating settlements. They've got some good rules and some stat blocks you can use. So I want to model. Remember, I'm taking my world, I'm converting it. So I have my world of Prismar, or this realm of Prismar on paper. I've got this realm of the Luminar Nexus, these nations. And then I've got cities, settlements like Kvarca and Prismatica within Prismar. But I don't have stats on them. I don't have the particulars, what's there and what they're, famous for. I have some ideas in my head. So I want to take Kathy here and apply some of Pathfinder's second edition's world building tools for nations and settlements, and come up with some usable mechanics for where Kvarca's realm is. And I also want to try and maybe get into some maps. So you can see in my isometric picture over here on the upper left, this is one of my first attempts at using AI art in order to generate a city map. So this is what an overview of Kvarca and what it might look like. A bunch of stony crystalline growths of stalagmites, and the buildings themselves are all crystalline and jewel-like things. So anyway, I want to maybe get into some map building. So can I have a AI art generate some city maps, some gridded maps? That might be pretty fun to work into this next section as well. All right, so that's the plan. Hopefully you tune into that one as well. If you like what I'm doing, you like this concepts, how to use ChatGPT, how to take your 5e world and switch it over to Pathfinder, the remastered version, drop some comments, throw in a like, subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff that you do with YouTube. And I will hopefully check you out in the next vid. Have a good night. Take care of yourself. See ya.